Mary Catherine Ham, Brian Wilson, Brian Neiman, today's newsmakers, and you, the Morning Majority. 105.9 FM. AM 630. WMAL.
Good morning, Morning Majority, 8:07. We're in the last hour on a Friday morning of the Morning Majority, and this ends up week number 2, by the way, on 105.9 FM. We are now simulcasting both on the FM and AM 630 WMAL. It's actually WMAL AM and FM now.
And some big breaking news this morning.
Yes, we do have some breaking news we need to
Anwar
talk about.
al-Alwaki, the infamous imam, or I don't know if he's technically an imam, but preacher of some sort.
Cleric is the word,
who for
yeah.
a while was in Northern Virginia, spent much time in America, sort of styled himself as a peacemaker for some time, and then decided that he was going to disciple a bunch of killers. And he had some contact with Nidal Hasan, the guy who killed 13 people at Fort Hood. He may have been in some support role in 9/11. So we apparently got him with the drone attack today. Perhaps us, the most likely U.S. drone attack.
Yeah, and we have a man on the line who is a member of the Senate Armed Services Committee. Senator David Vitter, Republican from Louisiana, is on the line. Senator, this attack against al-Alwaki, I mean, most Americans are very pleased that this guy has been gotten. But there have been, on our very show this morning, there have been some discussions about whether or not, if indeed this was a drone attack, as it most likely was, whether or not this is the right approach. How do you feel about that? Do you think that we have the right to go after these guys unilaterally? I mean, I personally think there's just no question about it, but there are those who are asking the question. What do you say?
I think those who are even asking the question are living on another planet.
Well, that would be Senator Ron Paul, among others.
Well, I think he's definitely living on another planet. We're at war. These folks are attacking us daily and planning much more horrific attacks daily. And when you're at war in that situation, you need to go after and take out your enemies. And so I applaud this victory. This is a victory not just for us, for freedom.
Well, the point that some people have is he is an American citizen. Does that change the game at all?
Not if he's an enemy combatant in this way. Absolutely not.
Well, I wonder what you think maybe the political fallout would be. I think some of the left might be a little upset with Obama for having authorized the killing of an American citizen. It's something that they thought probably he wouldn't have been down with when he went into office, but a lot on the right are applauding Obama today.
Well, I think that's generally true. I don't think that's going to have any big political significance because I'm not sure where the left is going to go in the presidential election, not to a Republican. So I don't expect that to have any real big fallout.
Yeah, let me ask you, changing topics
Sure.
about what's going on in the United States Senate. Do you have that soundbite from Dick Durbin there, Mike? See if you can cue that up for me while I talk to the senator. Look, I mean, the president, he gives this big speech to Congress. He gives the big hoo-ha speech in front of the House and the Senate joint meeting of Congress, and he says you got to pass the jobs bill. You got to pass this jobs bill now. You got to do it right away. And then he goes on a big campaign cross-country tour and says, you know, it's a top priority. Call Capitol Hill and demand that they pass this jobs bill. Then we have this little soundbite, this little comment yesterday captured by our sister station, WLS in Chicago, from Senator Dick Durbin when he admits, take a listen.
Do you think you have 60 votes for it?
Not at the moment. I don't think we do. But we can work on it. We should. The president's right. There's no reason to delay this. Too many people are out of work, and a lot of them are pretty desperate.
Okay, but there's an admission right there from Dick Durbin.
Sure.
We don't really have the votes.
Well, not only that, he also admits they don't have Democratic votes. So what's the scene in the Senate?
Well, I think in general, the president's jobs bill, his speech, his proposal went over a bit of a thud. I don't think it created any excitement, even on the Democratic side. The broad concern, certainly my concern, is that it seems to be son of stimulus, seems to be stimulus part 2. And as far as I'm concerned, we've been there and done that. It created a huge amount of new debt, $1 trillion of additional debt. Didn't create many, if any, jobs. It was promised to get us below 8% unemployment relatively quickly. It's never done that. We were hovering near 10% for a long time and still are not that much lower. So I really think we need a new approach, particularly as we face at the same time the challenge of unsustainable spending and debt. because this whole stimulus model, of course, spends a lot of taxpayer dollars. The first time, $1 trillion, counting interest on the borrowed money. This time, well over half of that again.
Do you think this thing will even come to a vote ever?
Probably not. Probably not.
So the president is he knows this, right? He's not a dumb man. He knows how to count votes. Why is he still pushing it then?
I think, quite frankly, this was more about his campaign than about the economy. I think it's a campaign platform. He's going around the country talking about it. I think it's more about his campaign than real economic leadership. I hope what we do is come together in Congress with good ideas from both parties and try to act. There are important things we could do to create jobs, get things going, not spending taxpayer dollars. Things like fundamental tax reform, which the president's own deficit commission talked about. I strongly support that. That can produce new revenue to help lower deficit and debt through growth. Things like regulatory reform. We have a regulatory overkill right now. It's a big wet blanket on job creation. And domestic energy production. That's important for the country, for our energy independence. It would also create great jobs here and new federal revenue. Royalty on domestic energy production is the second biggest source of federal revenue after only the federal income tax. That, again, could create great jobs here and further our energy independence and create new revenue.
You talk about regulatory, the heavy hand of regulatory process.
Right.
You talk about how the oil industry is sort of being held back by the regulatory process. And there are, I mean, I could go through a whole list as long as my arm of examples of this. One of them comes to mind is the Gibson guitar raid, in which they are holding, they are saying, the Fish and Wildlife Service is saying you can't use certain kinds of wood because they weren't finished in India. So then they have confiscated all this wood that Gibson wants to use to make guitars. But what they're saying by enforcing this policy the heavy-handed way that they are is it's more important for us to be concerned about the jobs in India than jobs in Tennessee.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with the details of that, but it sounds like another, unfortunately, horrible example of that lack of common sense and regulatory overkill. And agency after agency after agency right now in the federal government, we have an avalanche of new regulations, a lot of new burden on small business. Now, look, nobody's arguing that we shouldn't have basic important regulations for health and safety in the environment, but that we've had that for a long time. There's been an avalanche on top of that in the last 2 years, and it's a huge burden on job creators just when we need their energy and their investment and their risk-taking the most.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Senator, for being with us this morning.
Great to be with you all. Thanks for the invite.
Senator David Vitter, Republican from Louisiana.